chatting, guys? It's your friendly neighbourhood drunk Scotsman here. And after how well my Gears of War tier list video done, I thought, why not let's make another one? And if you guys like these kinds of videos, I've got another couple of ideas in the mix for different franchises just to share my opinion and that on them. And one big one I thought I would do today is Call of Duty. I mean, you literally don't get a bigger first person shooter franchise than Call of Duty, I suppose. Um, it basically, you could argue, invented the modern day first person shooter. I know some argue like Halo had more of a say in that, or Battlefield was also there. But when most people think of modern day first person shooters, the first thing they think about is Call of Duty, specifically the like Xbox 360, PS3 era. So I thought, why not give my thoughts on the series as a whole today? And one thing I've done beforehand is said what ones I've not played. So I've never played Road to Victory because that was a PSP exclusive. I do intend to get to it someday, maybe using an emulator or so, but I've not really heard great things about it, so I'm not exactly in a rush to really play it. Call of Duty Online, that was the Chinese, I believe, based online only Call of Duty game. Merc Music, he used to do a lot of videos on it and that, but it was notoriously hard to get working if you lived outside of China, and it is now shut down anyway, so regardless, wouldn't have been able to play it. Then you've got Call of Duty, I believe that's Black Ops Declassified. So that was a PlayStation Vita exclusive once again, Call of Duty game. Now I did have a PS Vita, but I got it later on, so the servers for that game were already shut down, I believe, by the time I got a Vita, so I never bothered to buy it. Um, Black Ops 7, I refuse to pay full price for that game. I'm waiting till it is heavily discounted because, once again, I've not heard good things about it at all. It's actually the first Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare that I've not bought day of release, and from what I've heard, I'm really not in a rush to buy it at all. So to give you a little bit of perspective of my opinion and my history when it comes to Call of Duty, first Call of Duty I ever played was Finest Hour on the PS2, and since then it's just been a love-hate relationship really with the franchise. Um, I absolutely love the franchise to death, but in recent years, I would say post Cold War, for me, there's been more lows than highs with the series, and we'll get into that as we go through the games and stuff. Um, but I am mostly play Call of Duty for the story mode. Um, I do play a shit ton of the multiplayer, but as you'll see, the story mode is what will most likely sway my feelings about each game, rather than specifically the multiplayer itself. The multiplayer and zombies in particular will be a big factor, but it won't be the deciding factor compared to the story mode. But anyway, let's get into this. So, the very first game that started of it all, Call of Duty. Now, this was your old school military based shooter where you had health packs, there was no regenerating health. Bit of a chore to go back and play now, but I would say it's worth it to see where the series began and just overall how it progressed to where it is today. The story's quite good as well, typical World War II story mode, etc. And it was originally a PC exclusive when it launched as well, I'm pretty sure. I would probably put Call of Duty in C category, solely because for new players who maybe aren't used to older style first person shooters, it will be a bit hard to go back to if you're not used to that style of old school first person shooters. Now, I'm actually going to do a wee bit out of order here, so I'm going to do Call of Duty United Offensive, because that was an expansion to the original Call of Duty. It's basically that game, but a mission pack for it, basically. So to me, they're of equal footing. No much point going into too much detail. I said it's basically the same game, but more missions. That's literally it. Next, we had Call of Duty 2, which is once again World War II, and this was the first game to ever feature a character called Price. Now, if I'm correct, it isn't the Modern Warfare Captain Price, it is actually his father, I believe, that's in this game. And this overall severely improved on the first game. Essentially better in every single way. It introduced regenerating health, the combat was better, the difficulty was more fair, it wasn't as BS as a lot of other old school, like Medal of Honor style first person shooters like the first one. So, because of that, I'm going to put that in B tier, I would say. Next, we had Call of Duty 3. Now, this was a launch title for the PlayStation 3, and it was also on the Xbox 360. Um, a lot of people didn't actually like Call of Duty 3. It's looked a bit more fondly on now than it was back then. It felt like a step forward graphics wise, but I felt it was just Call of Duty 2 all over again with slightly better graphics. So because of that, I'm actually going to put COD 3 in C tier, just because it never really brought anything new to the table so much, and it really was just COD 2, but done again with more next gen at the time graphics. And as well, the PlayStation, there was no PC port, and the PS3 version had notoriously bad 6-axis implementation for random fights you would get in with German soldiers and stuff, and it just wasn't that great of an implementation. Now, this is when we get into what we would call the modern Call of Duty and the golden era of Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare saw the series go away from the World War II, and as the name says, it went into modern warfare at the time. So it focused on wars that were going on at that time back in 2007. I believe it was 2007. Um, and focused on that with modern guns, modern tactics. It introduced arguably some of the best characters in Call of Duty history with Price, Soap, all that. And for that, and basically it defined what Call of Duty would be going forward. And because of that, I'm putting it in S tier. And so after that, we took another swing back to World War II. But this time, it was done in the style of Modern Warfare rather than Call of Duty 3 and before. And in turn, the plot of this game actually is a prequel to the Black Ops series, which would come after Modern Warfare 2, which we'll get into later. So this game it took the World War II formula that was perfected around this time of 2 and 3, but added what was changed in 4 to basically make the best World War II Call of Duty game. And for that reason, I'm going to put World at War in S tier as well. And it also introduced the zombies mode for the first time, which, in my opinion, is the best thing Call of Duty's ever done. Because I have probably spent more time just randomly playing zombies than I have playing any of the campaigns or any of the multiplayer modes. So after that, we got what most people consider the best Call of Duty game. I personally don't agree with this, and I actually believe Modern Warfare 2, story wise, somewhat, was a little bit weaker than the first game, and it was basically just Modern Warfare 1 done again with a continuation of the story. The story is arguably better in 2 than it was in 1, but for what Modern Warfare 1 done for the series as a whole, for me, that's what edges it out a little bit more than 2. And arguably, most people consider 2 to have the best multiplayer of the series, but I actually somewhat disagree with that because with stuff like noob tubes and tactical nukes that were implemented and all that, I kind of felt like, yeah, it built the base for what future Call of Duty multiplayer was, but I feel it was a bit too gimmicky and somewhat cheap because it was basically in like the akimbo shotguns and that. It had too many classes that were basically just you use this class, you're gonna win the game if no one else is using it. So for me, that was somewhat tarnished the reputation and memories for 2, but it is definitely an A tier Call of Duty. Now, this is probably my most controversial opinion because I know most people would rather give this title to this game's sequel, but for me, Black Ops 1 is the greatest Call of Duty of all time. Now, I will admit that is mostly out of sheer nostalgia on my part, but the storyline, the numbers, Mason, the multiplayer, the zombies, it all just gelled together to be what, in my opinion, is the perfect Call of Duty. I mean, the setting of the game, the the atmosphere, the characters, the storyline that can be a mind fuck if you don't potentially play it multiple times, and the fact it was technically a sequel to the best World War II Call of Duty makes it even better, in my opinion. And it was when they took the formula of zombies that was made in World at War and literally perfected it in Black Ops 1. It literally was, in my opinion, the perfect Call of Duty. Now, again, for me, the next game is once again sort of similar to Call of Duty 3, where it kind of just felt like more of the same, never really improved on anything, but kept a good story going. But the multiplayer and the story kept it good enough that I would put Modern Warfare 3 in B tier. Not as I wouldn't say it's on the same level as Modern Warfare 2. I do feel out of the Modern Warfare original trilogy, it's the weakest in the franchise. If we're talking about the OG trilogy, by the way, we'll get to the rebooted trilogy later on. Um, for me, it's the weakest. The storyline was good, but it never really done anything different from 2 to warrant more than it could have basically just been a DLC story mode for 2 with maybe a map pack or something included, in my opinion. And that is a trend that kind of started with Modern Warfare 3, I feel. Um, and it kind of gave COD the reputation of just being the same game every year, but with new maps and a worse story, and it kind of began the downfall of COD having that reputation, in my opinion, which turned a lot of people away from Call of Duty at the time. But then, a year later, what most people consider to be the best Call of Duty, Black Ops 2, and it's going straight in S tier for me. Black Ops 2 took a futuristic, well, I say futuristic, but in the campaign, um, we are now past the quote unquote future that the campaign takes place in. So, yeah, there's that. But anyway, that makes me feel really old. Um, but Black Ops 2, amazing story set in the future, but not too futuristic, which it still had somewhat a base in reality, if you get what I mean. Um, Multiplayer was essentially perfected at that point. It just took what Black Ops 1 done and slightly, some people would argue it done it better. For me, it was amazing, but just as I said before, basically out of pure nostalgia, nothing will ever beat the original Black Ops for me, even Black Ops 2. Um, the zombies mode, people argue it's the best in the series. Just most people consider Black Ops 2 the best one because it did basically take everything in Black Ops 1, gave a futuristic twist on it, and somewhat improved on it. Personally, the story mode in it for me is a wee bit lacking compared to Black Ops 1, but in no way is that a downside because, like I said before, it's unfair of me to even compare it to Black Ops 1 because I wouldn't personally see anything ever better than Black Ops 1. Now, the next one, so this next couple of games is what I'd like to call the underrated era of Call of Duty. So the next one up is Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, this game was the first Call of Duty for the next generation at the time. So the PS4 and Xbox One and obviously PC. Now, this game gets slated at release, and who could really blame people? I mean, it was the year after Black Ops 2. I mean, this game had an alien version of zombies, basically. Instead of having zombies, the multiplayer was somewhat lackluster. It was filled with microtransactions, with stuff like Snoop Dogg being the commentator in that over the games. But for me, the story is where COD Ghost shines. And I mean, who couldn't love the little wee dog that follows you the entire game? And you should literally play it for him alone. So I'm actually going to put COD Ghosts, I would say, in C tier. I'll put it in C tier solely because it is a game where the story mode carries it more than anything. So I'll do high C tier, almost B tier, if the multiplayer had been a wee bit better at the time. I mean, the map Stonehaven's notorious for being one of the worst maps in COD history. So for most people, that alone would see it in low C tier, high D tier. But personally, for me, the story mode is so underrated, and the fact that ends, spoiler alert, teasing a potential sequel that we're most likely never gonna get because it was one of the worst CODs selling wise ever. And so they kind of took a step back after this and decided we're gonna see what done well in Black Ops 2 going for the futuristic, but we're gonna take it a step further. And this is when they introduced EXO Call of Duty era. I like to call this the EXO trilogy. So that's Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare. And for me, Advanced Warfare, once again, is very low C tier because the zombie mode in it was terrible. You had to buy it after launch, I'm pretty sure, or it was you only got it if you pre-ordered and then you had to buy it later if you didn't. The multiplayer was okay, but it introduced loot boxes into Call of Duty for the first time, so that alone is why it's going low C tier. The story mode was really good. It does actually have a really good story mode, but once again, I feel it's not enough to warrant placing it any higher solely because of what it meant and the impact it had on the franchise going forward. Now, this is arguably the next one's arguably the best game out of the EXO trilogy, and that's Black Ops 3. I'm gonna put Black Ops 3 at low B tier because it arguably has the best zombies mode in the series, but it's arguably carried by mods on PC due to using the Steam Workshop. So if you're playing it on console, it's not that great a game. The story mode isn't as good as previous Black Ops games by a long mark, but it's still decent. I really enjoyed the multiplayer Black Ops 3. I actually feel Black Ops 3 is the multiplayer I've actually spent up there in my top three when it comes to multiplayer. But the lackluster story compared to the previous two Black Ops games and a zombies mode that's top tier but heavily carried by mods on PC. The base maps are amazing, especially when they brought out the Zombies Chronicles later on and added all like your top maps from World at War, Black Ops, Black Ops 2, stuff like that. But I feel the base game, if we're going off the base game, you only had one zombies map that a lot of people love. I wasn't a massive fan of. Um, and as I says, lackluster campaign, some of the best multiplayer, and probably the best zombies. But so that get followed up with Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So I'm gonna put this one high C tier, and because once again, a lackluster multiplayer filled with loot crates, and it was even worse than it was in Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3 because in Infinite Warfare they introduced, I believe this was the introduction of the variant system. I could be wrong, but so basically you could have a gun, but because you got the version of that gun out the loot crate, it would do more damage because you paid to get that weapon. That alone for me ruined the multiplayer because it basically made it pay to win. Zombies mode was okay. The story is where Infinite Warfare shined. Third time lucky. um, if it wasn't for the story of Infinite Warfare, once again, similar to probably Ghosts in Advanced Warfare, it would probably be sitting at D tier right now. And it ended off the trilogy of what I like to call EXO Call of Duty because we never saw it go back to that afterwards. Next, we have Call of Duty World War II. I'm going to put this in A tier because this game was all around solid. It had a brilliant multiplayer, it had amazing story, and it had a really good horror based zombies mode. Like it didn't go for the cartoony way that Infinite Warfare and that went. It was very you're stuck here with the zombies, not the other way about, which some of the other zombie mods could feel like. Um, Call of Duty World War Two arguably has a top three campaign for me. It's the best World War Two campaign minus World at War out of the Call of Duty series, and it's a must play if you love the World War Two setting. And it was a great callback to the World War Two era of Call of Duty because it felt as if they were going back and they were starting to get on a winning streak again. But once again, the only thing that would stop this being an S tier is that it had the goddamn loot box system again. And I'm so glad they don't do that anymore because it ruined the full era of Call of Duty for a lot of people because it did make it feel like it was pay to win. To be fair, in World War Two, it wasn't that bad compared to the others. It was more cosmetic than weapon variants like in Infinite Warfare, etc. But it rounded off. I would say that was the last peak PS4 in 360, not 360, Xbox One era Call of Duty for me. Because going forward, we never really hit the same height for me, in my opinion, again. Because Black Ops 4, I'll be saying it right now, Black Ops 4 was D tier. Blackout, or whatever it was called, was just their version of Fortnite, which later would become Warzone, which we'll talk about later. It was multiplayer only, there was no story mode. The multiplayer was decent, but for me, no story mode was a killer for me. Um, and then the zombies mode was good, but it was nothing to write home about compared to other ones with zombies. There's really not much to say about Black Ops 4 because there wasn't much to it as a game. Um, it was probably the most disappointed I've been with a Call of Duty that I've actually played. Next, we have, after the Black Ops 4 disappointment, so they decided to then go on and reboot the Modern Warfare series. Now, I would argue this was a good idea because the series did have a good conclusion with Modern Warfare 3. People were harkening back at the time for that golden era of Call of Duty. I would probably put this one in B tier because it felt like they were trying to mix modern COD with old COD, and it worked. The story mode was amazing, and the multiplayer was good, but I felt it fell off really quickly. Um, and if it wasn't due to lockdown happening in 2020, I feel it would have died out even sooner. It just felt to me like it was a game they released and then they just didn't add enough to it. And we all know why that was, because that at the same time they decided to bring out Call of Duty Warzone, which in my opinion is the worst thing to ever happen to Call of Duty, because ever since they started focusing on mostly that to compete with Fortnite, the entire series as a whole has suffered, in my opinion. Um, I don't really have much to say about Warzone because I've not played it much at all. I probably played like 5 matches in total because if I wanted to play Fortnite, I would play Fortnite or Apex Legends or a game that's dedicated to that style of play, not a Call of Duty spin on it. When I want to play COD, I want to play an actual COD game with a campaign, multiplayer, and maybe zombies or an extra third mode. And that did kind of spoil the taste from the Modern Warfare reboot for me a little bit. I do love the game, story mode wise, but they did basically abandon the multiplayer to focus on Warzone at the time. So after that, they decided, right, we're gonna go back a little bit, and we're gonna make a new Call of Duty Black Ops game, and this is going in A tier because for me, Cold War was the last best Call of Duty game. For me, after this, the series only went downhill. Like I said, when I was talking about the Modern Warfare reboot, it was good. Cold War was definitely an improvement on that. They updated it a lot more. I loved the crossover events they done with you could buy skins from series such as Scream and stuff like that. And the campaign was amazing. Zombies was top tier. It was just everything about it. To me, it was at the time we all felt COD's back after this. But then, sadly, after that, Call of Duty Vanguard came out, which is going in. I'm gonna do D tier solely because everything about the game, apart from the story, sucked ass. The multiplayer was just terrible. Like, it barely had any of its own maps. Most of the maps are reskins from World at War and World War Two. Story mode was good, but very mythological, if that makes sense. Like, you can tell it in a way it's not something like it felt like you were watching a plot of a like sick 1950s World War Two propaganda movie. Do you know what I mean? Like a post-war propaganda movie rather than a Call of Duty game. I barely even touched zombies because it got abandoned. We got like it's from when I last played it. We had one map, and then I think they added more later on. But by that time, it was too late. They done like a King Kong and Godzilla collab, which for a World War Two game made no sense. Um, Overall, Vanguard was just a complete disaster. But following that, we got once again, I would put this high B tier. Modern Warfare 2. This one was the last one with actually good multiplayer. um, it, the story mode was brilliant. It was obviously a sequel to the 2019 reboot, and it kept it going without feeling too dissimilar to the original trilogy. It just kept it going. The multiplayer was amazing. The map design was good. But that whole era is just tainted by the focus on Warzone, and it still is to this day. Black Ops 7's the same, um, and it really just sours that entire era for me. And after that, we got Modern Warfare 3, which is going in D tier as well, because it was literally a DLC expansion for 2 that they same maps. It was that bad at one point. They had to reintroduce all your weapons and classes from Modern Warfare 2 into the game because people were complaining so much about the lack of guns and content and maps. They basically just forged the two games together, and most people I know just went back to Modern Warfare 2. The story was good, but charging £70 at the time, I believe it was 60 or 70 for an glorified expansion is terrible. And I've never forgave them for that. Um, and also, the whole thing was basically just to add more content for Warzone. Essentially, that's what it felt like. So after that, we had a little bit return to form with Black Ops 6. I'm going to put Black Ops 6 in low C tier. It basically just felt like they put a Black Ops skin over Modern Warfare 3. It didn't really feel like a Black Ops game to me. It had a good story, decent zombies, but the multiplayer was literally just Same story as Modern Warfare 3. It felt rushed, it felt abandoned after not long. And it got to the stage where I dropped it really quickly and just went back to older CODs because what was the point? I actually don't have much to say about like the newer CODs because out of them all I drop them quicker than I keep playing them because there's just nothing keeping me like wanting to keep playing. So that's it when it comes to all the CODs, mainline COD games. So now we have a couple of quote unquote, you would call them spin off games, right? And I would put, so Finest, and we'll do them in reverse order, okay? So I'm going to do Finest Hour, that one. It was basically Call of Duty 1, but on the PlayStation 2. Out of sheer nostalgia, it's going high C tier because that was actually my introduction to the series. Um, the very first level of that game, I'll never forget. You literally get handed a rifle ammo and get told, go get a gun off a dead body and try and survive more than 10 minutes. That's literally what you're told at the start of the game. And for a PlayStation 2 first person shooter, it's up there with some of the best. It's brutally difficult at parts, but it's so fun to play that you actually want to get through it and keep going. And after that, they brought out Call of Duty 2, the big red one, which I'll probably put on similar wavelength, to be honest, to Finest Hour. It was essentially the PlayStation 2 version of Call of Duty 2. It felt that one really feels like you're watching Band of Brothers or something like that. Um, the camaraderie between the cast, it was quite like the Brothers in Arms games, only obviously you don't physically command your squad like you do in those games. Um, but the sense of camaraderie is probably the best in the whole series, and it comes from a PS2 spin off version of Call of Duty 2. So next it is Call of Duty Mobile. Probably put this in D tier. I mean, for a mobile game, it's good. I mean, I've played it like a couple of times, but it came from that very greedy era of Call of Duty. You know, it's like constant money grabbing, collabs that don't make sense for that kind of game. It We were told it was basically going to be the mobile version of Call of Duty Online, pardon me, which was going to be a combination of the entire series history. But in reality, it just never lived up to it. It's still going, it's not shut down like Call of Duty Online, but it wasn't the same. It really wasn't. And honestly, I install it on every phone that I get, but I never touch it. So that's why it's going bottom of D tier, because to me, I've just never built a rapport with the game at all. And Call of Duty Zombies will be going S tier because even if it's talking about the mobile phone version that came out on like early iPhones and early Android, that is peak. It was for the time, it was amazing. And if it's talking about the mode itself, Zombies is what's kept me coming back to Call of Duty over and over again. As I said, I've spent more time playing Zombies than actually playing multiplayer or any of the campaigns. So for me, it's the reason I keep coming back. If a COD game has a zombies mode, I will be buying it. Minus Black Ops 7 because that game's terrible, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, guys, so thank you guys for watching, and that was my tier list for Call of Duty. Very controversial opinions in there, I believe, like putting Modern Warfare 1 above Modern Warfare 2 and 3, having Cold War and World War 2 so high up, putting Black Ops 2 below Black Ops 1. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments below. And if you like this video, please pop a like and subscribe for more content like this, and I shall see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.